Okay, thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm going to share my screen and get started because then we will have lots of time in addition to the presentation to actually talk about what you're hearing here today and questions you might have. So that's always really important. I just need to do an adjustment on what I can see at my end. So can I confirm everyone can see the full screen? And
Still just see you, Danielle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good to know that. That's what I thought. I'd double check on that. How are we going now? Has that gone into full screen mode, or is it just...
Yes, we've got the PowerPoint up now. Not full screen PowerPoint. We can, but just see probably what you're seeing.
Yeah, the presentation. Okay, let's try. Let's stop sharing. Okay, that should be a full screen now.
Yeah, looks good.
Great, excellent. Okay, welcome everyone. And my trusty assistant there is Madeline Muirhead, who is from Nutrien, and she is joining us on screen online today to assist with this presentation of the Nutrien Community Grants Program for 2026. So this is round 6 of this grant program. Firstly, in the spirit of reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge all the lands that people are coming from today across Australia, and on behalf of FRRR and Nutrien, give our thanks and gratitude to the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that are joining us here today. Thank you for being a part of this presentation. Apologise. So, today we're going to talk about FRRR and Nutrien, so just giving a bit of background on the organisations and our partnerships. Obviously, information about this grant program this year. We'll take questions on the grants after we've talked about the grant program for this year. And then we have a grant writing tips and resources webinar or chat, and then further questions overall. So I appreciate some of you might be very experienced, so there's no obligation to stay on all the time if you know the grant writing tips and that aren't relevant. But we do find that during this, we encourage you to put any questions in the chat, and we really like to use those question times to talk about your projects or specific questions that you've got, because it's really important when you're preparing to do a grant application that you try and get any background that you can. And I think that sometimes people that attend these webinars get that little extra kind of boost in regards to just a broader understanding of what we're looking for in these grants through the conversations that we have. So please use the chat. We also have Deanne Cavalier from FRRR on the line, so she's going to assist us with the chat, and she'll try and answer questions as they come along. But once again, we'll also have those breaks for questions overall. So that's great. So firstly, Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal. If you're not familiar with us, we are a national foundation and we are focused on rural, remote and regional areas of Australia for ensuring their social and economic strength. We're the only organisation with this focus in Australia. And, we work with government, philanthropy and community, and also corporate organisations like Nutrien to support your communities. I think we really believe that where you live shouldn't limit your opportunities. And I encourage you, this is our new strategy. And so I encourage you to have a look at these slides when you get it and just understand a bit more about what we are, what we're about, and how we're thinking about the future and what our role is in supporting your communities. Now I'm going to hand over to Maddie Muirhead and let her have a bit of a chat about Nutrien.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's so exciting to be here for the 6th year. This is a very special project to me and to the Nutrien network. So if you're not familiar with us, I bet after this you'll be seeing our stores everywhere because we are the largest agricultural services provider in Australia. So we've got stores all across the country in all states. We specialise in agronomy, in livestock, water, finance, insurance, sort of anything to do with running a farm. We can do it for you. But the focus of this program for us is really to make sure we're supporting those communities who support us. I mean, obviously, farming and agriculture is incredibly important here in Australia and all across the world for feeding everybody. But we also, couldn't be successful in our farms without those communities that support us. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our communities resilient, strong, vibrant. So through this program, we're hoping to help out there. You'll sort of see and you'll hear a little bit more from Danielle later down the track. It's part of this program or part of the application process is connecting with your local Nutrien branch manager. So that's sort of the big kind of key between, our local stores being able to help their local organisations. We want you guys to be able to have a chat together and see how you can make the most of this funding. So yeah, that's about us. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm really, really excited to see the amazing projects that come through this year.
Thanks very much, Maddie. It really is a fun program to see just what's going on in rural, regional and remote Australia, what's important and what can be, what these grants can make happen in small communities. So just the basics, it's open to applications now, and you can enter our grants portal through FRRR's website. It closes on Thursday, 6th of August at 5 p.m. and that's Victorian time. Just always very important to make those notes down. There is $250,000 available in total. So that's grants up to $5,000. So that means we award usually between 50 and 55 grants overall. Our big aims are to contribute to the success, vibrancy and wellbeing of rural and regional communities. We're about supporting local grassroots organisations with funding for projects. These are about community-led projects and what's meaningful for local communities. And as Maddie said, a key feature of this is actually connecting with your Nutrien branch manager as a part of your application process, chatting them through your grant project. You don't have to, give them a submission or anything like that. It's just get in touch with them, talk to them about what you're applying for and ask them to endorse your project. Now, a Nutrien branch manager can endorse, as many projects in their community or in the surrounding region that come to them and talk to them. They're not making a judgment. But if they think there's any concerns about it, they will raise it with us. So they'll always come back to us. So don't be concerned about that. But it's also a really great way, I think, for people just to connect with local businesses and let them know what's going on, particularly because there is an agricultural focus with these grants. And I think, local stockists of these products and people that are dealing with local farmers, it helps them build knowledge. So we're hoping that there's that additional kind of outcome of these grants in enabling that local connection to a branch manager. I think it's really important, as we said, this is the 6th year. And what we find is that, it's a small grant, it's up to $5,000. What we see in the last 5 years is that funding's primarily used for upgrades to shared community facilities, the purchase of essential equipment, accessibility and safety improvements, really importantly, often that infrastructure that's critical for volunteer-led delivery of services and activities. And we are really, prioritising projects that deliver broad and lasting benefit. But also, we try not to be rigid and prescriptive in what we say we will fund and we won't fund, because we understand it's your experience, it's what's on the ground, it's what matters to you. So we want to hear those stories, what you've landed on. We are amazed constantly by the innovation in community and the skills at local community level in regards to developing projects. So, we get a lot of applications in for the grant program. We have funded over $1.26 million, and we've read 1,228 applications. Look, I think it's really important that we get to attract a lot of applicants that haven't heard of FRRR before. And that's really important, like 40% of applicants. And also those 40% of applicants are first-time applicants. And this is, we really work on a no bias, no kind of, any credit given to past grantees or knowledge. We're really looking at those applications with a really fresh eye to understand what they're doing. 70% of grantees are volunteer-run organisations. We really trust community organisations and what they're doing. And we know what amazing work volunteers do. And we also know that small towns are really important. So 91% of applications are for populations of 10,000 or less. I just think that's important. Sometimes, there's a lot of big grant programs out there and you're competing with larger centres, but we are very much focused on probably smaller rural communities and making sure that these projects can be invested where they make a difference to that broad community. So eligibility. It is not-for-profit organisations. Now, you don't need to be a charity with deductible tax recipient status. You just have to be operating as a not-for-profit or an incorporated organisation with not-for-profit rules, which means that, if you wind up your organisation, those funds go to a similar organisation to do that work. And you need to have an ABN as well. So all this is in the guidelines. You can only put in one application per round. The projects must benefit communities in rural, regional and remote Australia. These projects aren't for metro areas. And if you received a grant in 2025, you are ineligible to apply in 2026. We do this because we receive a lot of applications and we want to ensure there's equity in regards to how we grant. And we don't want to waste people's time when we say, well, they've received funding last year, we won't fund them this year. So that's why we just tend to make that a blanket rule that you're ineligible if you were successful last year. Who we fund, as we said, not-for-profit or incorporated organisations, where agriculture is a key industry and part of the local identity. So, this is about the alignment with Nutrien and their investment in this project. We're looking for charitable purpose with a broad benefit to local community. And we know that sometimes investments in infrastructure, that will play out over time. We see so much that, while these are 12-month projects for you to deliver, those projects have ongoing benefits for years to come. So we are looking at that positive long-term social and environmental outcome as well, which means we're probably not as inclined to be funding one-off events. We're more interested in things like the resources that will support those one-off event, but then be there for the next event, or maybe a shared resource across the community. We're really interested to know what your community does, what your organisation does in the community, and how this project is locally led and supported by the community. What we cannot fund, and this is sporting activity. Sport is not eligible as a charitable activity. We appreciate that many organisations, sporting organisations in small communities, are the heart and soul and deliver a lot of programs that are outside the sporting remit. So it doesn't mean that sporting organisations can't apply. It means that the programs that they are applying for funding for aren't actually just benefiting the members of that sporting group or enhancing the skills or activities of that sport. So equipment, development or specific programs related to the sport won't be funded. Ongoing core organisational costs. We will pay, the costs of wages that are related to the project or for consultants or where there are wages required, but we're not going to contribute to the ongoing costs of the CEO or, the accountant or those kind of things. So that's what we mean by core organisational costs, as opposed to costs that are directly incurred through delivering the project or program. Prizes, gifts, trophies or awards. If you are running an event, you'll need to look for sponsorship or other funding to support anything that might be given in that way, because we won't fund it here. And if we see it in an application, we will tend to, and if it's a strong application and we want to fund it, we will actually take that funding out and consider it without that as something we would fund. The project needs to be occurring after we announce these grants. So these grants will be announced in mid-October. So your project needs to be kind of looking to be starting towards the late October. You have until December 2027 to deliver your project if you're successful. Obviously, the projects need to be in the communities where you live, not outside Australia or in another, somewhere else. We don't support political parties, lobby groups or religious promotion through this grant program, and they are for broad charitable benefit, not for private business, sole trader or private interests. Additionally, ineligibility will be seen if you have any overdue final reports with FRRR. Now, you might have an existing grant with FRRR that you're currently doing a project on, and that doesn't preclude you from applying for this program. You just need to demonstrate that you can manage 2 programs at once. But unless, if that project report's not due yet, you're eligible to apply in that circumstance. But if you've got a report that's due, I suggest you get it in before you submit your application to this grant program. We do need to understand the items that you're putting in the budget, so quotes, and if that's not possible, some kind of rationale for what those quotes are, particularly for any items or expenditure over $1,000. I've just discussed, that sense of retrospective, so a project that has already occurred or will occur in the next few months before we announce the grants will be ineligible. And if your application is incomplete, so if there's information in there missing, that means we can't understand, the full gamut of the project, then we won't be chasing you up to try and find that out. So just be really thorough in completing your application. What can be funded? As I said, we keep it broad because this is about what do you want? What do you need money for? So you can deliver or provide activities, events, programs and services. You can purchase or hire equipment and materials. Small community infrastructure projects such as community facility upgrades. Organisational capacity building, such as doing strategic planning or even training of staff that's really going to contribute to how they can work in the community. And also developing community resources. We kind of look at that aspirational sense of, what you want to occur as a result of this grant. So when we talk about building local organisations' operational capacity and sustainability, we are looking at that idea. Have you got the right equipment? Are you properly trained? Those kind of things that really support organisations to operate better. That can include volunteer-run organisations that might need training or equipment that supports them to work more effectively or coordinate more effectively. Opportunities to bring people and community organisations together. We know that connection is critical to support mental health and just enable strong networks that make communities resilient. We understand that a sense of identity, every community is unique, is our perspective. And so we understand that there's things that are really important to you. We see this with applications for historical trails and other, and particularly in agricultural communities, just maintaining that heritage and keeping people connected to it, and also leveraging it to attract people to the area. We're really interested in social capital and supporting diverse groups. So, we know there's a diversity of culturally and linguistically diverse people in rural communities, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, those living with a disability, and LGBTQIA plus people. And, we're really interested in how your project supports the broader community as best as possible and makes activity that's inclusive or opportunity that's inclusive. We're really interested in how you might be doing things that improve community health and social wellbeing. As I think I've said it quite a few times, but that volunteer base, we understand how important it is to look after volunteers and maintain their wellbeing, and also celebrate and resource their efforts. Increasing access and inclusion for vulnerable and disadvantaged groups is really important to see. Enhancing places where communities gather, promoting connection to place. We understand that things like digital technology and connectivity are really important and increasingly important in remote, rural and regional communities. And just enabling people to develop skills, knowledge and confidence. Often access in smaller communities isn't as easy. And developing peer networks, those kind of activities, we're really interested in how you're innovating to, have the same opportunities and benefits of possibly, larger communities. What are you doing locally that really supports a stronger community all round? Got a few projects here, which is always, I think, good to reference. This was a lovely project in Dorrigo at the Dorrigo High School. It was for their agricultural program. And I think, this is where we see that idea of sustainability. They wanted a new feeder, and this was going to save them a lot more money, and also bring some really interesting skills for their students to actually be operating equipment and in an environment that was very much like what they would be doing on a farm. And I think that's really critical. We also see that the opening barbecue of the actual space provided a really good opportunity for local community members to have a look at the school farm and to be involved in it and to understand what the kids are doing. And we see that intergenerational connection is really critical too. Even when you're thinking about a project and developing it and thinking what it'll look like in the end, how you'll bring people together, who else will be interested in the outcomes here, see where you can, weave that into your application. So we kind of understand this bigger vision of how you're going to include your community in the outcomes and celebrate with them. This is what we're talking about, those community hubs that are critical places of connection in communities. This is in Lucindale in South Australia. And they're installing new flooring. And we know that this is just increases safety, increases the longevity of the community facility, makes it more fit for purpose, and has better access and genuinely just looks better, really. This is a lovely environmental project, but also, really looking at the traditional owners and celebrating First Nations people and place. And one of the reasons why they did this was that there was some vandalism in this park, and they thought that they needed to make people aware of what an important site it was, and engage them with the local language, to kind of build that ownership and knowledge of the place. And I think, that's that deep kind of reasoning about, why these projects are important. And, their final report has told us how it's been really exciting to do this. And now they've got more ideas about how to do it and how people are engaging with this site more. I always like a shared resource, and also a resource that reduces some of the strain on volunteers. Often we know people are using their own equipment to support activities locally. So just the purchase of this trailer was a great example of, making activities easier, and making this available for lots of different events, to actually be, done without a big need for either hiring equipment. So there's that real long-term sustainability built into the volunteer and the Ag Society and that broader community in Camperdown, Victoria. And this final one is in West Arthur in Darkin, Western Australia. And this was really recognising those challenges in that community where people were ageing and there was no transport. And they had done all their numbers and worked it all out. And this funding went towards leasing the vehicle. And it was a really critical part of them actually being able to demonstrate to then be able to, seek further funding in the future, to continue to provide this community transportation and the volunteer drivers. And it's critical in continuing the mobility of older people or people with a disability, as things change in their circumstances, and allows them to stay in the places where they've lived a long time. So quite literally, the question is, what would you do with $5,000 in your community? What's your project? Who will it benefit? Who will help to do the work? Do you need approval? All those kind of questions you should be thinking of. Just from our perspective, as I said, and I like to emphasise that contact with the Nutrien branch manager is really important. If you have a Nutrien branch manager that's part of your volunteer committee or anything like that, that's not an issue. That doesn't preclude you, and we don't consider it a bias. We just have that declared in the endorsement that they are involved in the community in some way, or they may make a comment about how they know the applicant. It doesn't sway either way. It's the project that's the important thing. So just understanding that independence in our assessment committee, which includes myself and a grant officer, and then I work with the senior granting team, and also the lovely Maddie Muirhead and another member of Nutrien Executive, who support us in reviewing a short list of applications as well and finalising the grants there. The FRRR CEO has delegated authority by the FRRR board to consider and approve the projects for funding. So that's just our process. We do notify all applicants about their outcome. If you're successful, you're emailed, you're informed how to access funds and how to promote your project, and this is announced publicly and on the FRRR website. If you're unsuccessful, we advise you to take the chance up for feedback. FRRR, including myself, project officer, will take the time to talk you through, possibly reasons why you weren't successful. And we find that this really helps with organisations to come back with stronger grants or stronger applications in the future. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and just send to the floor and ask people if they've got any questions now, or if there's anything coming up in the chat. Dee? I think she's provided quite a bit there.
Oh, sorry, Danielle. I was talking. I had myself on mute. Okay, so they're interested in the community data tool to work out their remoteness indicator.
Yep.
if you have a look at the second link, that should work. They're saying it doesn't work. And I've just looked at it and it's got Chinese letters on it. So I've just contacted our web advisor to ask why. But there was one question I couldn't answer.
Yep.
Just trying to find that. Oh, Karen had a question just to clarify about. Karen, are you there? Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah,
Karen?
thanks for that. So our program is with young people, and it's a school-based program that we roll out as a non-for-profit without cost to the schools. And we're in 8 small communities and district high schools, all Nutrien ag areas through the wheat belt, grain belt in WA. Do we need to get each Nutrien manager in those spaces to give us a letter of support or an endorsement, so that there's an endorsement from each town?
No, we'll be very happy with one letter of support. So
more than happy to get them all. Yeah.
But no, that's fine. So no, but it's a really good question. Do you know what I mean? That's, but what we would really want to see is understand your relationships with those schools. So that's where we, like an email or a letter of support from each of those schools, or some indication of the work you've done within the past. And we'll talk about this a bit more when we talk about, applications and granting kind of tips and tricks. But a really critical part of this is understanding the community engagement, or the partners that you're going to work with, and how what this program means to them, and how you're actually going to ensure that they participate and benefit from it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Has anyone got anything else? I'm very happy to take a question from the floor. But as I said, we can come back. And just letting you know too, this chat will also be turned into a bit of an FAQ and included when we send out the slide, the recording and everything. So we do try and kind of send you through as much as we can from what we've chatted about here, and also from the transcript. So.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, look, just a question whether or not we would be eligible, but at the moment we've been successful in obtaining 80% of the cost of a new roof for our local community hall, and I'm just trying to cover the shortfall, because we have a lot of outgoing costs and insurance and everything that we can't really afford ourselves. But would it be, could I'm thinking of applying for up to the $5,000 just to top up our funds so as we can get the new roof. Would that be okay?
Yeah, we will contribute to other, to larger projects to make sure they're successful. We're very conscious that it can be pretty difficult to raise funds. And we also know that costs are constantly increasing. And so, it takes a lot of Bunnings barbecues or sausage sizzles to try and raise $5,000. So if that can make a difference to a really critical local project, that's definitely eligible.
Okay, thank you. Yep, terrific.
Okay, got a lot of remoteness questions there, Dee, but thank you. Does anyone else have a question, or would you like me to go on to the tips and tricks for grant seeking? I will take silence as a...
Sorry, Danielle.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry, I've just added in all the coding for the community data tool. I didn't realise it didn't give you the RA codes, and I couldn't put it in one chat. I had to do it in 5 different chats.
Right.
So apologies for that. Any questions? If you want me to look up your remoteness area while we're going, just pop it in the chat and I'll respond to you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Dee. That's really handy. Okay, we will share again.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't apologise. All good.
I'm thinking of this for our local ICPA branch, and we're hosting a conference next year, which the conference will be, we're in South Australia. but our conference is going to be in a different location. Would that matter? Like,
Um,
so
so
we want to do some like conference bags, not necessarily like a goodie bag, but not a goodie bag, but have things from our region sort of in it and
yeah,
supporting locals and information that is required. Would something like that be okay?
potentially it could be a bit borderline, depending. Do you know what I mean? Because it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
kind of get into that prizes, trophies type thing.
yeah,
And is the conference going to be held in a metro area? I suppose who's benefiting by going to the conference as well? Do you know what I mean? Who the attendees?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So majority of it is remote women.
Yep.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
No, look, I just, yeah, read the guidelines, go through, have a think, give us send us an email or something if you want to chat about it a bit more, to consider it. Because also sometimes we think if you've got that, is there anywhere else you've got money that you could kind of swap it out and go, okay, well, how about we put this money towards this really critical piece of the conference, and we put that money towards
yeah.
those bags or something like that. And I know this is grant dependent, so that can make it a bit challenging, but it's always good to think creatively in case that might be an option as well.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I've just got a quick question as well.
Sure.
We are a sporting group, and so I took all the notes down when you said about sporting groups before. If we were to apply for resources, for example, laptops or iPads for the volunteers to be able to run the sport that we do, is that okay or not?
No, because that's really benefiting directly the people participating in the sport, and I know it benefits the volunteers and it makes it easier for them, but at the end of the day, it kind of the main benefit there is that it's more effective to run your sport and your activity and those kind of things. So
So basically sporting groups can't apply because everything is related to the sport. So equipment, the development programs you've said can't be.
Yeah, look, most of them, yes. In reality, yeah, most. I mean, but we have applications from football clubs and sporting groups that are doing broader health and wellbeing, courses for their people, or upgrading their rooms that are both used for their stuff, but also have broader community benefit. But anything that is specifically kind of going to have an outcome that benefits the sport is ineligible.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go into this final one, and just saying that there is if you go into the Nutrien site too and you're not sure where your Nutrien branch is, you can go in there and put in your postcode and find somewhere. And if you have any challenges, get in touch with FRRR and we'll have a bit of a look as well, and try and find the best person for you to talk to. So just when we talk about applying for a grant, some people do this all the time. Some people are a bit daunted by it. So what we try and do here is just strip out the kind of fear of doing it and just get it down to those real basics of, answer the questions in your preparation and planning. What, why, when, where, who, how much. And then just being really clear. And it can be difficult sometimes when you've got a big project, when you want specific funding for something. So it is that kind of, we're doing this, we need this money to help us deliver this component of it, which is important for these reasons. So, as that conference you're talking about, sometimes, there might be an element of even well-being or that you want to bring into the conference, that's above and beyond professional development and really addresses some of the challenges in the community. And so while the conference might be 100,000, this is a specific speaker or someone that you want to bring in for that. So just trying to be really specific about what it is, why it's important for your community is really that critical piece. What's the need and what's the opportunity? Do you know what I mean? How does it shift things? We're always really interested to understand what will happen if you don't do this project. You know, why is it such a critical component? How does it make a difference? And we do love evidence. If there's research, stats, local economic or social impact things that kind of back up what you're saying, then let us know. But be careful what you if you're referencing, 60-page documents, because assessors will not have the opportunity to read all of that document. So if you are going to link a document, make sure you're saying why this, this backs up this information. Don't just reference the document as if, have a look at this. And that's why we kind of here try to point you to that perspective of just being really specific about things in regards to what your why is, Don't be too vague, people are struggling, it's difficult cost of living. It could be a consultation that's been done. It could be a community survey. We see a lot of organisations doing things on Facebook, as community surveys or getting feedback on particular things. Or, if you're running a local community hub, you may be having a lot of people coming in and requesting certain things. So just getting a little bit of information in regards to that and kind of quantifying it is really important when you're telling us why you think this is a good idea. We're really interested to know who will be involved, the partners and supporters, and as I said, understanding what that relationship is. If you say you're going to work with a local school or a local elderly home or any other organisation, we really want to see that you've got a relationship with them and they are engaged in your project. Volunteers, who are your volunteers? What kind of volunteer numbers do you have? Do you have enough? Also, what's the diversity of your volunteers? We're really interested in people engaging younger people in volunteering now and understanding how that works for you. And of course, the participants and beneficiaries. Who are they and how is this going to support them? We do know that skills and experience, particularly with things like infrastructure projects or even, quite complicated projects, it's understanding if there might be people on your board or volunteers are involved that are, providing some real expertise on that. And we often see that with projects like solar and that, but also it may just be the consultant or the local tradesperson that you're using. And we'll see that in the quote that they are, really addressing some key things that you've outlined are the critical parts of your infrastructure. How, when, where, and expected outcomes. Sometimes a project will be presented to us and you kind of like, how's that going to work? What's the timing there? So just kind of stepping out those details for us is really important. And we do, well, from FRRR's perspective, we do try and present you with questions that hopefully aren't too repetitive and kind of direct you to answer those questions specifically. We also understand that, you may not know the specific project dates. Just give us an approximate time and particularly why that time of year is important. The reasoning behind it is always really interesting for us. Also things like, do you need permits? So this really helps us to understand how well your project is planned. Have you thought into that, how what council involvement might be needed for approvals to infrastructure builds? Are there OH&S challenges, things that need to be managed? Is insurance covered if you're doing an event? Just those things that stop us asking questions. And a really good thing is that's what success looks like. If we plan it really well and we deliver it and we tick all these boxes, then this is what it's going to look like at the end. And that also supports you when you're kind of documenting your project and evaluating its success when you're doing your report at the end. How much will it cost? If we refer to FRRR, we have a template in the application. So you can put everything in there. And this includes not just, what you need the money from us, but also if you're applying for other funding, we understand this is, it's July now. You might be applying, you might have a $20,000 project, and you might have different funding applications out to try and manage that whole project. And that's fine. You don't necessarily have to have all the money in at the moment. But, we're interested in who else you're applying to funding for, or if you've already received funding and so that income's there and confirmed for you. That's great. It's really good. But we also understand that, this is a time for kind of building up funds for larger projects. So just being as transparent as you can around your finances around a project, getting quotes, look for things, online items and that. It's as easy as doing a screen print and showing us, how much possibly the items at Officeworks are going to cost. And that would probably include the freight too, if you are needing to, purchase from somewhere that's a little bit further away from a shop. Also, any co-contributions, so other partners and supporters, and in kind, we have a dollar figure of $45 that we count towards volunteer hours, that we ask you to, when you're calculating the cost of a project where you might have 1,000 volunteer hours being put towards its delivery, that you put that as an in-kind cost, because we really recognise that a $5,000 project, might have another $5,000 worth of volunteer hours being invested in it. And that also demonstrates to us exactly kind of that commitment in the community to making something happen. So it's all these little bits and pieces that start to give us more of a picture of what your project looks like, who's involved and who supports it. So just the real basics: plan your application, read and follow guidelines and look at the assessment dates, follow all application instructions, allow plenty of time, quotes, financials, and letters of support. The letters of support really are the gold, just letting us know who you're working with and their engagement with the project. This includes if you're working with any traditional owners or First Nations people. We'd really like an indication of any partnership that's going on there. Make sure your budget adds up. So we are trying to work out where the money's going. And tell us a really compelling story about why this is important to your community. I like to kind of provide you with this checklist once again to try and make it simple for you. Just use that clear, simple language to tell your story. Assume the assessor knows nothing about your organisation, project or community. So, a nice clear elevator pitch there. And just be really specific when answering questions. Don't try and, kind of give lots and lots of details. Just answer the questions. Avoid technical language and define words where necessary. Use evidence to support claims. Make it clear how you're going to use the requested funds. Spell out any acronyms, which is really important because sometimes it's difficult to work out exactly what's being talked about. And use facts, not opinions. FRRR has a lot of resources on project planning, governance, reporting, money matters, financial. So I encourage you to go in there and have a look at any of those if you're looking to build your skills in writing grants or even developing grant projects. And obviously the Nutrien Community Grants Program is open now and closes on 6th of August at 5 p.m. For grants up to $5,000. There is also an ANZ Seeds of Renewal grant program open now that closes on 30th of July. And Strengthening Rural Communities is open all year round. And In a Good Place, Supporting Mental Health in Rural Communities, is also open now until the 18th of August. So I reference these because it's really important. I think, we're in a great position at FRRR to present you with lots of opportunities. And I think it's really great for you to find the right fit in any of these grant programs where your project will be the strongest and the most aligned. And that's all. I'm going to say thank you, but I will stop sharing. Maddie, have you got any closing words?
No, just get along and apply. If you have any questions at all about eligibility or just wanting to test, where your idea or for your project might sit, absolutely reach out to FRRR or to your local Nutrien branch manager. I mean, Danielle's done an amazing job today going through everything, but sometimes it's just nice to have a bit of a sounding board. So yeah, absolutely, please reach out with any questions or thoughts. We'd love to help, and hopefully we see your applications at the end of it and we can help your communities.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Maddie. Dee, is there anything particular in the chat you'd like to highlight?
There's a lot of questions about remoteness indicators, Danielle, and I've just put a couple of times just that with FRRR's new strategy, priority will be given to the more remote communities.
That's not in this grant program, Dee.
There you go. Cancel everything that I've said in the chat.
Sorry about that. No, in this grant program, we accept grants in rural, remote, and regional grant locations. So there's not a priority over remote locations. Yeah, I'm sorry. That I should have picked that up in the middle question section. I didn't realize it was getting so intense. So no, this grant program does not have that remote priority emphasis in it. We are looking at rural communities. We are looking at smaller communities, but also regional and rural, and that emphasis on having an agricultural connection in that community. So as I said, that's why we present those other grant programs there to see where you're best aligned with your project and your community with the grants that are available from FRRR.
I was just going to jump in and say, if all of our stores are in, one of those sort of eligible rural, remote, regional communities. So I think if you've got a connection to a local Nutrien store, you should be pretty safe there. And it also doesn't mean that you have to be specifically in the community. I know we've had applications previously, you might be, sort of the next community over from your local Nutrien. But I think as long as you've got that key connection into a branch or a branch manager, that will help with that eligibility around location as well.
Yeah, and we've had ones that are further out because we also know that some locations are a long way from anywhere, but they are still that is their local ag
exactly.
store.
Yep. Could be 6 hours away.
Yeah,
could be 8 hours
exactly,
away. Yeah,
exactly.
that's just what we're dealing with in the country.
Yeah, and I think that FRRR is here to answer your questions, and yeah, feel free to give us a call. This will be sent to you. I'll just reinforce that. The recording will be sent to you. The PowerPoint slides will be sent to you, and we will do an FAQ based on both the transcript and what's in the chat today so that you get this really kind of succinct summary of what's been discussed today and clarified as well. Lovely. Thanks, Alice. Yeah, I think you're right there with regards to, certain sites, you mightn't think it's remote, but it can be quite remote and away and not have the access. And particularly, as we said, we get a lot of applications for communities under 10,000 that are much smaller, and we are really looking to support those small rural communities. So that's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all your kind words, and all the best with your grant applications. Thank you.